The Grand Hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with worried voices. Hundreds of beings from across the galaxy filled the circular chamber, their forms ranging from crystalline structures to pure energy beings contained in special suits. Emergency lights pulsed softly along the walls, marking this as the 15th emergency session in just 1 week. At the center of the hall, First Speaker Marcus of the Elder Race stood with his 4 arms clasped behind his back. His typically perfect purple skin had turned a pale lavender from stress. The holographic display before him showed a network of wormholes, critical for interstellar travel, blinking red with warning signals. "The situation grows worse," Marcus announced, his voice carrying across the chamber. 3 more wormholes showed signs of collapse this morning. That brings our total to 27 unstable points across the galaxy. He paused, letting the information sink in. If these wormholes collapse, they will take entire solar systems with them. The chamber erupted in panicked murmurs. A crystalline being stepped forward, its faceted body catching the light. "We of the crystal minds have run billions of calculations," it chimed, its voice like tinkling bells. "Our quantum computers see no solution with our current technology." From another section, a glowing orb of pure energy floated forward. "The Luminars have tried channeling pure energy to stabilize the wormholes," it pulsed. "We failed. The energy only made the degradation worse." Marcus nodded gravely. "The Elders have searched our archives going back millions of years. We found nothing like this. It seems the very fabric of space-time is unraveling at these points, and none of our advanced sciences can stop it." In the back of the chamber, a small green tentacled being raised one of its appendages. Most ignored it. The being represented one of the younger races, barely 1,000 years into space travel. But Marcus, ever courteous, acknowledged it. "Yes, Representative Bill." Marcus used the being's chosen simple name, as its real name was unpronounceable to most species. "Well," Bill's translator crackled, "there is one species we haven't consulted yet." The tentacled being seemed to shrink as all eyes turned to it. "The humans." The chamber fell silent for a moment before breaking into something between laughter and scoffs. The crystal mind's facets flashed in amusement. "The primitives from Earth. They barely managed faster than light travel a century ago." The Luminar pulsed incredulously. "They still use physical tools. Actual, physical objects to solve problems." But Bill stood firm, its tentacles curling with determination. "Yes, they're young. Yes, their technology is primitive by our standards. But they have something different. They solve problems in ways we don't understand. Ways that sometimes work when our advanced methods fail." Marcus raised a hand for silence. His people, the Elders, had watched humans for longer than most. They had seen how these primitive beings had survived countless disasters on their homeworld, how they had adapted to every challenge, how they had advanced from stone tools to space travel in a mere blink of cosmic time. "Representative Bill may have a point," Marcus said slowly. "We have tried the most advanced solutions in the galaxy. Perhaps," he seemed to age 1,000 years as he spoke, "perhaps it's time to try something different." The crystal mind chimed in protest. "First Speaker, you cannot be serious. These beings still burn chemical fuel to reach space. They haven't even mastered gravity manipulation. And yet," Marcus countered, "they solved the Pyraxian plague when our best minds could not. They found a way to communicate with the deep space whales when we had failed for millennia." He straightened his spine. "We are out of options. The wormholes will begin catastrophic collapse in less than a month. We either try everything, or we watch billions die." The chamber fell silent again, this time with the heavy weight of decision. "Contact Earth," Marcus commanded. "Tell them we need their best minds. And hurry." He looked at the holographic display where another wormhole had just turned red. "We don't have much time." As the council dispersed to carry out his orders, Marcus hoped he hadn't just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. But as he watched the growing number of red dots on the display, he knew they had run out of choices. Sometimes, he thought, the most advanced solution isn't always the right one. The Grand Hall of the Galactic Council fell silent as the human delegation entered. 3 humans walked in, carrying nothing but old-style tablets and worn notebooks. The advanced species watched in barely hidden disgust as one of the humans actually used a primitive wooden pencil to take notes. Tom, the theoretical physicist, looked around with undisguised wonder. His gray hair was messy, and his glasses sat crooked on his nose. Next to him, Kate adjusted the sleeve of her engineering jacket, her practical boots making soft sounds on the polished floor. Jack, the deep-sea mining expert, brought up the rear, his weathered face showing no emotion as he studied the massive chamber. First speaker Marcus floated down to meet them. "Welcome to the Galactic Council," he said, trying to hide his disappointment at their ordinary appearance. "We expected more of you." 3 is enough, Kate said, already pulling out diagrams she'd drawn on actual paper. "We've studied the problem details you sent. We have some questions." The Crystal Mind representative chimed in disapprovingly. "Questions? We've already analyzed every possible aspect using quantum. How does the power flow feel?" Jack interrupted, his voice rough from years of working in deep-sea pressure vessels. The council members looked at each other in confusion. "Feel?" The luminar pulsed. "We don't feel power flows. We measure them with precision instruments that." Yeah, Jack waved his hand. "But what's the gut feeling when you're near one of these unstable wormholes? What does your instinct tell you?" The advanced species were speechless. Tom took advantage of their silence to spread out his calculations, done by hand on paper, to the horror of the crystal minds. "We'd like to see one up close," Tom said, pushing his glasses up. "Not through your advanced sensors. Just see it. Maybe touch the surrounding space." "Touch it." The crystal mind's facets flashed in alarm. "That's incredibly dangerous. Our most advanced protective fields barely." "We'll use our suits," Kate cut in, pulling up designs on her tablet. "Simple protection. Sometimes the best way to understand a problem is to feel it yourself." Marcus looked at the 3 humans with growing concern. "You do understand what's at stake. These wormholes could collapse at any moment, taking entire solar systems with them. We've tried everything our advanced science can offer." Tom smiled, scratching some numbers into his notebook. "That's your problem right there," he said quietly. "You've tried everything advanced, but sometimes the universe doesn't need advanced. Sometimes it needs basic." "Basic?" The luminar pulsed in disbelief. "The fabric of space-time is unraveling." "Everything unravels the same way," Kate said, showing them a sketch of what looked like a simple bridge structure. "Whether it's a bridge, a mining tunnel, or space itself, the principles don't change just because the scale does." Jack nodded, pointing to a particular wormhole on the display. "We'll start with that one. Looks like it's got the same pattern I saw in a collapsing underwater cave system off the coast of Australia." The council members watched in disbelief as the 3 humans huddled together, comparing their simple notes and drawings. They spoke in basic terms: pressure, flow, support, structure. Not once did they mention quantum mechanics or 11-dimensional calculations. "You have 1 week," Marcus finally said. "That's all the time we can spare." Tom looked up and grinned. 1 week? That's luxury. Kate once stabilized a collapsing bridge in 6 hours. "That was different," Kate protested. "That was just regular physics." "This is regular physics too," Tom said, showing her his calculations. "Just bigger." As the humans walked out to prepare for their wormhole inspection, the crystal mind turned to Marcus. "First speaker, surely you don't expect these primitives to succeed where we failed." Marcus watched the humans leave, noticing how they moved with quiet confidence. "At this point," he said softly, "I expect nothing, but I hope for everything." The emergency lights continued to pulse, counting down the time until the galaxy would either be saved or destroyed. The observation deck overlooking the unstable wormhole was filled with advanced scanning equipment, none of which the humans were using. Instead, Tom sat cross-legged on the floor, watching the swirling vortex of space-time through the reinforced window. Kate stood beside him, recording the motion with her tablet's simple video camera. Jack paced the deck, occasionally pressing his hand against the wall to feel the vibrations. "This is a waste of time," the Crystal Mind representative chimed from behind them. "We have detailed scans of every quantum." "Sheh," Tom said, not taking his eyes off the wormhole. "Look at that spiral pattern." "Kate, are you seeing this? It's just like a whirlpool," Kate finished, zooming in with her camera. "The exact same motion I saw when studying river erosion under bridges." Jack stopped pacing and joined them at the window. "More like an underwater pressure vent to me. See how the edges pulse? That's what happens when deep-sea thermal vents get blocked." The Luminar representative floated closer, its glow dimming in confusion. "These are space-time distortions. They can't possibly be compared to simple water movements." Tom finally stood up, his knees cracking. "Why not? Nature uses the same patterns over and over. Big or small, simple or complex, the mathematics don't change." He pulled out his notebook, sketching rapidly. "Look here. This is a satellite photo of a hurricane on Earth. Now look at the wormhole. See the similarity?" Kate added her own observations. "The stress patterns along the edges. They're behaving exactly like a bridge under too much weight. The structure's trying to hold, but it's being pulled from too many directions." "And here's the interesting part," Jack said, pulling up data on his tablet. "The vibrations I'm feeling through the hull. They're in a pattern, just like the warning tremors before a deep-sea cave collapse." The alien representatives watched in bewilderment as the three humans gathered around a small table, spreading out their simple drawings and notes. They weren't using any of the advanced equipment. They weren't even looking at the quantum readings. "The problem isn't in the complex stuff," Tom explained, seeing their confusion. "It's in the basics. These wormholes are failing because they're following the most fundamental laws of physics, the same laws that make water spiral down a drain." Kate nodded, adding to his diagram. "Everything in nature wants to find the easiest path. Water, electricity, even space-time. When that path gets blocked or stressed, it finds a new way through," Jack finished, "usually by breaking whatever's in its way." The Crystal Mind's facets flickered rapidly. "But our calculations show." "Your calculations are perfect," Tom interrupted gently. "They're just too perfect. You're looking so closely at the quantum level that you're missing the bigger picture." He held up his sketch of the hurricane next to the wormhole. "Sometimes you need to step back to see the whole pattern." Marcus, who had been quietly observing, floated forward. "Are you saying you understand what's causing the instability?" The three humans looked at each other. Jack spoke first. "It's like a blocked pipe under pressure. The normal flow of space-time is hitting something, being forced to change direction. The structure can't handle the stress," Kate added, "just like a bridge with supports in the wrong places. And when it fails," Tom concluded, "it's going to follow the same pattern as every natural system under stress. It's going to break at the weakest point and spiral out of control." The aliens stared at the simple diagrams and notes spread across the table. Their advanced sensors had shown them every quantum detail, every microscopic fluctuation. But none of them had thought to simply watch, to feel, to compare it to simple, natural phenomena. "Can you stop it?" Marcus asked quietly. Tom looked back at the wormhole, its swirling pattern now seeming less mysterious. "Maybe. But you're not going to like our solution." "Why not?" Kate smiled slightly. "Because it's going to be very, very simple." The wormhole pulsed behind them, its spiral pattern matching Tom's hurricane sketch perfectly. Sometimes, the oldest patterns in nature were the key to understanding the newest problems in space. The Council's engineering bay looked like a child's playroom, at least to the advanced species watching in horror. Tom, Kate, and Jack had pushed aside the quantum computers and holographic displays. In their place, they had set up what looked like a primitive science project. "Is that water?" The crystalline's voice chimed in disbelief as Jack filled a large transparent container. "Yup," Jack said, carefully adjusting the water level. "Best way to test our theory." He looked at Kate, who was building something that looked suspiciously like a toy bridge across the top of the container. Tom sat nearby, surrounded by paper covered in equations. He occasionally glanced up at their makeshift model, made adjustments to his calculations, then went back to writing. His pencil moved faster than most quantum processors, though the aliens would never admit it. "This is how you plan to save the galaxy." The luminar pulsed with barely contained frustration. "With water. And what is that material?" "Plastic straws and rubber bands," Kate answered, not looking up from her work. "Sometimes the simplest tools give you the clearest answers." Marcus floated closer, his curiosity overcoming his skepticism. "Explain what you're doing, please." Tom put down his pencil. "We're building a physical model of the wormhole system. See, the water represents space-time. The straws are our artificial tunnels, the wormholes, and Kate's bridge structure shows the stress points." Jack started stirring the water in a specific pattern. "Watch what happens when we create a vortex, just like the spiral pattern we saw in the real wormhole." The aliens watched, despite themselves, as the water began to swirl. The makeshift bridges Kate had built began to vibrate. The straws bent under invisible pressures. "See that?" Kate pointed to where the structure was bending. "That's exactly what we saw in the real wormhole. The stress isn't evenly distributed. It's collecting at certain points." Tom grabbed his notebook excitedly. "The math matches perfectly. The flow patterns, the stress points, even the vibration frequency. It's all following basic fluid dynamics." Fluid dynamics. The crystal mind's facets flashed in confusion. "Space-time isn't a fluid." "Actually," Tom said, showing his calculations, "at a basic level, it behaves very much like one. Everyone's been so focused on quantum mechanics, they forgot about simple Newtonian physics." Jack made another adjustment to the water flow. "In deep-sea mining, we deal with immense pressures. If you try to fight them head-on, you lose. But if you work with the natural flow—" He moved one of the straws slightly, and suddenly the violent swirling calmed. Kate pointed to her bridge structure. "Look at where we placed the supports. Not where the advanced model said they should go, but where basic engineering principles tell us they need to be." The aliens watched in growing amazement as the humans continued to adjust their simple model. Each change was tested, measured with basic tools, and either kept or discarded based on immediate results. "This is how humans solve problems," Tom explained, seeing their interest. "We make models. We test. We fail. We adjust. We don't just rely on computers to tell us the answer." "But it's so primitive," the luminar said, though its tone held more wonder than disgust now. Jack laughed. "Sometimes primitive is exactly what you need. Nature doesn't care about advanced technology. It follows the same basic rules it always has." Marcus watched as the water in the container flowed smoothly through the modified structure. The violent vortexes were gone. The stress points had been redistributed. It was working. "Can this really be applied to actual wormholes?" he asked. Kate stood up, brushing off her hands. "The principles are the same. We just need to scale it up." She smiled. "And we'll need some help from your advanced technology for that part." The humans had done what no other species had thought to do. They had turned an incomprehensible problem into something they could see, touch, and understand. Now came the hard part: convincing the galaxy's most advanced beings to try a solution that could fit in a child's swimming pool. Sometimes the best solutions were the simplest ones. The humans just had to prove it. The Grand Hall of the Galactic Council had never been so quiet. On the main display, Tom had just finished showing their proposed solution, drawn in simple 2D diagrams that looked more like construction plans than advanced physics. "You want to build space pylons. The crystal mine's voice was almost a whisper of disbelief. Support structures, Kate corrected, pointing to her diagrams. Just like we use to support bridges on Earth. They'll help distribute the stress that's tearing the wormholes apart. Jack stepped forward with his part of the presentation, and we'll need to install pressure release valves, like the ones we use in deep-sea operations. They'll let excess energy bleed off safely instead of building up. The luminar's glow flickered rapidly, the equivalent of a shocked headshake. You want to treat a space-time anomaly like a water pipe. Exactly, Tom said, excitement clear in his voice. Because that's basically what it is, a pipe for space-time to flow through. And right now, those pipes are clogged and breaking under pressure. Marcus floated closer to examine the simple drawings. These structures, they would have to be built in normal space, outside the wormholes. Yes, Kate confirmed. We'll use your advanced materials, of course. But the design is basic engineering. Spread the load, support the weak points, give the pressure somewhere to go. The hall erupted in voices. The advanced species couldn't believe what they were hearing. Treating space-time like water. Building physical supports for something that existed partly outside normal space. It was absurd. It was primitive. It was brilliant, said a quiet voice from the back. All heads turned to see Bill, the tentacled being who had first suggested calling the humans. It's brilliant because it's simple. We've been trying to solve this with complex quantum mechanics, but the problem isn't complex. It's basic physics. Tom nodded gratefully. The universe follows patterns, big or small, complex or simple. The math is the same. A collapsing wormhole follows the same rules as a collapsing tunnel under the ocean. But the scale. The crystal mine's facets flashed in agitation. The energies involved, the quantum fluctuations, are all following basic physical laws, Kate cut in. We don't need to control every quantum particle. We just need to give the energy somewhere to go and support the structure while it stabilizes. Jack pulled up images from Earth's deep-sea operations. Look, when we mine in the deep ocean, we don't try to control every water molecule. We work with the pressure, not against it. Space-time is the same way. It wants to flow naturally. We just need to help it. Marcus studied the simple diagrams again. The design was elegant in its simplicity. Instead of trying to control the complex quantum mechanics of the wormholes, the humans wanted to support them like any other natural structure. The materials needed, he began. We can use your advanced alloys and energy fields, Kate said quickly. We're not suggesting we build it with steel and concrete, but the principles are the same. Tom stepped forward, his voice serious. We have 1 week before the first wormhole reaches critical instability. We can debate the quantum mechanics for another month, or we can start building today. Your choice. The council chamber fell silent again. The human solution seemed impossibly simple, primitive, even, but their model had worked. Their math was solid, even if it used basic physics instead of quantum calculations. Finally, Marcus spoke. If we commit our resources to this plan, and it fails, then we'll be no worse off than we are now. Jack finished. But if it works. The humans stood quietly, watching the council members debate among themselves. Their solution wasn't pretty. It wasn't elegant by advanced alien standards, but it might just work. Sometimes Tom thought, watching the aliens argue, the hardest part of solving a problem wasn't finding the solution. It was convincing people to try something simple when they were used to complexity. The fate of the galaxy now hung on whether its most advanced species could accept help from its most primitive one. The construction site around the first unstable wormhole buzzed with activity. Alien ships moved massive pieces of advanced materials into place, following Kate's simple but precise blueprints. The crystal mines had provided a material stronger than steel but lighter than air. The luminars supplied energy fields that could bend space itself. But the design was pure human engineering. A little to the left, Kate called through the comm system, watching as the first support pylon moved into position. We needed exactly at the stress point. Tom floated nearby in his spacesuit, double-checking calculations on his tablet. Energy readings are increasing. The wormhole's reacting to our presence. That's normal, Jack said calmly, directing another team placing pressure release valves around the wormhole's perimeter. Just like deep-sea work. The structure gets nervous when you start poking it. The Crystal Mind representative watched nervously as the humans coordinated the massive construction project. Your primitive methods are working, Marcus interrupted, his eyes on the readings. The violent swirling of the wormhole had already begun to slow as the first supports locked into place. The construction continued hour after hour. The humans worked tirelessly, applying centuries-old engineering principles to the most advanced technology in the galaxy. When problems arose, they solved them with simple solutions. When a support beam wouldn't fit, Kate redesigned it on the spot. When energy levels spiked dangerously, Jack adjusted the pressure valves like he would in any underwater tunnel. "Look at that," Tom said excitedly, pointing to his readings. "The energy flow is evening out, just like in our water model." The aliens watched in amazement as the humans' simple solution began to take effect. The wormhole's violent swirling slowed to a gentle spiral. The stress readings dropped steadily. The support structure, looking more like an Earth bridge than advanced alien technology, held firm. "Pressure release valves operating at optimal levels," Jack reported, checking his gauges. "She's breathing normally now." Kate smiled inside her helmet. "Structure is stable. All stress points are within acceptable ranges." The Crystal Mind's facets flickered rapidly as it processed the data. "This is impossible. You used basic physics to solve a quantum problem." "No," Tom corrected gently. "We used the right tool for the right job. Sometimes that's quantum computers. Sometimes it's a bridge support." Marcus floated closer to the now stable wormhole. Its energy readings had returned to normal levels. The violent distortions that had threatened to tear apart spacetime were gone, and it had all been done with a solution so simple that most advanced species would never have considered it. "The other wormholes," he said quietly. "Can you stabilize them too?" Jack was already checking his equipment. "Now that we know the design works." "Sure, it's just construction work now. Basic engineering." "We'll need teams," Kate added. "Lots of teams. And we'll need to train them quickly." The Luminar pulsed thoughtfully. Perhaps we could learn your methods. They seem effective." Tom laughed. "And we could learn some of your advanced techniques. Imagine what we could do if we combined simple solutions with advanced technology." As the construction teams began packing up to move to the next wormhole, Marcus watched the humans with new respect. They had taken the galaxy's most advanced materials and energy fields and used them to build what was essentially a very fancy bridge. And it had worked. "Sometimes," he said to no one in particular, "the most advanced solution is not the best solution." Kate nodded, already reviewing plans for the next wormhole. "And sometimes the best solution is just good old-fashioned engineering." The first stabilized wormhole pulsed softly behind them, its energy flowing smoothly through the human design supports. It was proof that sometimes the simplest answer was the right one, even for the most complex problems in the universe. Now they just had to do it 26 more times. But that was okay. After all, it was just basic engineering. 3 months after the first wormhole was stabilized, the Grand Hall of the Galactic Council looked very different. Human engineering diagrams hung on the walls alongside quantum formulas. A simple wooden desk sat next to the advanced holographic displays. And at the center of the hall, a new seat had been added to the High Council, one sized for a human. Tom, Kate, and Jack stood before the council for the last time. Behind them, on the main display, 27 wormholes pulsed with stable, healthy energy patterns. "All wormholes have been successfully stabilized," Kate reported, holding up her old tablet. "The support structures are maintaining perfect stress distribution. The pressure release systems are functioning exactly as designed. The crystal mine's facets glowed with a new respect. You did more than save the wormholes. You taught us something valuable about problem solving. Indeed, the luminar pulsed softly. We had forgotten that advanced technology is not always the answer. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways. Jack grinned. And sometimes the best solution is a combination of both. Those support pylons wouldn't have worked without your advanced materials. Our pressure valves needed your energy fields. Tom nodded, pushing up his glasses. The math was always there. Basic physics or quantum mechanics, they're just different ways of describing the same universe. We just had to learn to speak each other's language. Marcus floated forward, his purple skin glowing with health now that the crisis was over, which is why the Council has made its decision. He gestured to the new seat. Humanity is hereby granted a permanent position on the Galactic High Council. The hall erupted in applause, a human custom that many alien species had started to adopt. Even the crystal mines chimed their approval, their facets flashing in synchronized patterns. But Marcus continued once the noise died down. That's not all. We have another announcement. The main display change, showing images of new construction across the galaxy. Kate gasped as she recognized her bridge designs and Jack's pressure systems being adapted for various alien structures. Your methods are being implemented across the galaxy, Marcus explained. Simple solutions combined with advanced technology. Earth engineering principles applied to alien construction. The results have been remarkable. The luminar floated forward. We're also establishing new learning centers, places where species can share their problem-solving methods, where advanced races can learn human engineering, and humans can learn quantum physics. Because that's the real lesson here, Tom said, looking around the hall. It's not about who has the most advanced technology. It's about using the right tool for the right job. And sometimes, Jack added with a smile, the right tool is a simple wrench. Or a pencil and paper, Kate said, patting her notebook. Marcus raised all four arms for silence. The galaxy faced its greatest crisis, and it was saved not by the most advanced species, but by those who remembered the basics, who looked at a quantum problem and saw a simple solution. The crystal mind chimed in agreement. We had forgotten that progress doesn't always mean complexity. Sometimes it means remembering what we learned in the beginning. As the ceremony concluded, Tom, Kate, and Jack looked at their simple designs, now hanging proudly in the council hall. They had come to save wormholes, but they had done something more important. They had taught the most advanced species in the galaxy that sometimes the best way forward is to go back to basics. So, Jack said as they prepared to head home, what do you think the galaxy will need next? Kate smiled, already sketching something new in her notebook. Whatever it is, I bet we can solve it with good old-fashioned engineering. And some quantum physics, Tom added with a wink at the crystal mind. Above them, the stabilized wormholes pulsed with healthy light, their human design supports keeping them safe and steady. They were a perfect blend of the simple and the advanced, of old wisdom and new technology, just like humanity's place in the galaxy.